and I'm going to continue this crusade to get people eating better. So I'm just about to tell you how to make a quiche. So I have here, I'll show you, my dish, and I have my pastry in there, and I will explain this in a minute. Now this is the raw pastry here, and this is exceptionally easy to make, exceptionally easy. Whatever you use in flour, so I used 280 grams of flour for this, so I have to use half of that, a mixture of butter and lard. So if that's going to be 140, so I used 70 grams of lard and 70 grams of butter for that. So if I used 300, I would use 150, which would be 75 and 75. If I used 400, it would be 200, 100 and 100. So I hope that's quite plain. So what you do is you just dump the flour in the bowl, put in the lard, put in the butter. You can cut it up into chunks, it's entirely up to yourself, and you just use this kind of motion, and you rub the butter and the lard into the flour, and you do this, takes quite a while, you do that until it resembles breadcrumbs. So then I took water and I generally add a tablespoon at a time so that I don't drown my dough. This would end up just an absolute squishy mess if there was too much water, so you want to add it so that you're packing it all together, and it should end up looking like this. So then you roll this out, sprinkle some flour down on the worktop, and you roll this out until it's very, very thin. And if you flap it back over the rolling pin, you can then use the rolling pin to kind of lift it over your dish. So once it's in your dish, you get a wee piece of pastry and use that to push it down into the corners. I always cut off the excess before I bake it, other people don't, but I do. So you blind bake this for 20 minutes at 200 now. I know that you're thinking, who the fuck does blind bake mean? I'm just about to explain this, carry on. Now, for blind baking, you can go on and look up on the internet, and there are all sorts of fancy fangled explanations for how to do this, but this is my method. I basically just covered my pastry case and my tin in tin foil so that it's under there, right, just that. And I've got, this is paella rice, and the paella rice is put in. I've got quite a wee bit of that in there, and it just weighs it down and it stops the pastry rising. Now just before you put this lot in, lightly prick the bottom of the tart with a fork, and I mean lightly, don't go at it hammer and tongs or you'll screw up your base. So now I have my 2 blind baked pastry dishes, and to them I'm going to add 225 grams of nice wee sweet cherry tomatoes. So they're going in, just layer them all about in there. One in one and one in the other. My 280 grams of flour was enough to cover these 2 wee dishes I've got. They're both the same size. I couldn't tell you what size they are, but if you do insist, I can measure them at some point, but they're not very big. So then I have some cheddar cheese. Now you can use parmesan, and gruyere cheese is actually really, really nice. Sprinkle that in. I keep doing it, it's a rocket scientist to cook. And in case you're wondering, and you've watched the lentil soup video, and you're thinking, oh, she's not changed her clothes, and actually the lentil soup is cooking a wee behind me as we speak. And this is what I'm going to eat for my tea. You see, my big brother is a very good chef, and I think it's largely down to him that I became a complete food snob, so I can't eat frozen food. I refuse to buy frozen burgers, waffles. I won't eat them. I generally don't eat anything processed at all. I like everything cooked from scratch, and it's not hard, it really isn't hard. So there you have it. We've got these, we've got cheese, and we've got tomatoes in them. Now we're going to add this. Now in this bowl I've cracked 2 eggs. I've got about 3/4 of a teaspoon of basil. I quite like my basil, but you can put in less or more, it's entirely up to you. And I've got 284 ml of double cream. Now, that is exactly that size, okay? So there's not any measuring involved really for this, except for your base. And in fact, I'm sure you can actually buy these bases now and completely cheat. You won't be doing that. So you want to just pour this in, and this, of course, is your quiche filling. So there we are. So now that I have that one done, I'm going to make up some more for the other one. I don't have enough, but I'm going to now put this in the oven and it will bake in there 20-25 minutes until it's nice and golden brown, and that's it. That's it. No rocket science, and it really doesn't cost a lot of money. I know some people go, oh, I don't have all that in the cupboard all the time, but if you're like me and you cook an awful lot and you get into the habit of cooking proper food and cooking things from scratch, you will find eventually that you'll have all these things, but there are a few staples that I reckon anybody should have, and that is plain flour, basil, rosemary, thyme, garlic, carrots, celery, onion, and you'll not go wrong. You can make something for nothing. So there you are. Tune in next time and we'll eat less shite.